Next witness.
State calls Michele Hall.
Michele Hall. Right up here, please, ma'am.
Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth and the whole truth, so help you God.
So help me God.
Please lower your hand and you can have a seat.
Okay.
State and spell your first and last name.
Michele Hall, Michele, Hall.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hall.
Hello.
Ms. Hall, what type of work do you do?
I'm a registered nurse of 16 years.
And what, I guess, area of the hospital do you work in?
I'm an emergency room nurse as well as an ICU nurse.
And as part of your duties as being a emergency room nurse, do you deal with kids?
Yes, ma'am.
And if they come into the ER, will you participate in treatment if necessary?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you always done that over your 16 years of being a nurse?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know the defendants in this case, Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum?
I know Jennifer. I don't know Joseph.
And how do you know Jennifer Rosenbaum?
She was walking around passing out pamphlets for someone that was running for office and introduced herself to our family.
Do you recall when that was?
I don't.
And did you have occasion to meet her foster children at all?
The only time I ever met her foster child was when she brought her to my house when she had been injured.
Prior to her bringing the foster child to your house, were you aware that she was a foster parent?
I was aware, but I never saw them. One of the conversations that we had had, she told my daughter and myself that she had fostered, that it was a weird story, that it was her foster sister's child, that she was a meth head and that she lost her custody, and Karma's a bitch, that she's going to be raising them now.
Are those statements that Ms. Rosenbaum made to you about raising the kids?
Correct. But we never saw them. I never saw them until she brought her over the day that she was injured.
Who was with you when that conversation was being had?
The initial conversation about being a foster parent was with my daughter, Jordan,
And where were you at when you were having that conversation?
and my kitchen table.
And what caused Ms. Rosenbaum to be in your home at your kitchen table?
Well, she was a law student at Emory, and she knew that my daughter was also going to be going to law school. She was at Georgia State University. She told us that she had an undergrad from UGA, GSU, and that she did an internship. And so she was explaining, you know, that my daughter could pursue that and how to go about doing that. So that's really how our interaction was mostly. It was just her telling my daughter how to get into an internship.
Did your daughter eventually apply for that internship?
She did, and she actually got the lead position.
And did you ever let the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum, know about your daughter getting the internship?
I did.
And when you're having this conversation in regards to her foster caring and fostering the children, what was your response when she made the statement, Karma's a bitch?
I just thought it was very bizarre that she would even be giving somebody's kids if they didn't have a good connection. I felt awkward. My daughter, as soon as she left, said, I'm not going
Objection, Your
to
Honor, to hearsay as to what her daughter said.
Sustained.
Well,
Excuse me.
yes.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear what I said? Okay.
Okay.
I'll just ask you another
Okay.
question. After she made that statement, did you make any response to her at all?
No, not really. I was stunned. I didn't really want to say anything else about it.
And how did it make you feel?
Uncomfortable. I told my daughter that she wasn't going to be by herself with her.
And did you have an occasion after that to see or communicate with Jennifer Rosenbaum?
The only time I saw her after that was when she came over to my house with the injured child.
Prior to that, had you seen the kids that she was fostering at all in the neighborhood?
No, I've never even saw them get in a car. My son's an athlete. He's a football player, and we have multiple football players at the house all the time. We're constantly outside, and I never even saw them.
And you said at some point in time she came over to your house with an injured child.
Correct.
Do you recall what that child's name was?
I don't remember, I think it's Danielle, I don't remember exactly what it is.
Do you recall how old she was?
She was about 2.
And when she came over to your home, what happened? And when I say she, when the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum, came over to your home, what
Well,
happened?
myself, my husband, and my son were outside with my neighbor Pamela, who's also a nurse. She was carrying the child on her hip and said, hey, she fell down the stairs and hurt herself, and I'm just worried, I don't know what I need to do. Well, I was looking at her, and her face was swollen. Her bridge of her nose was swollen, but her eyes were black, which in my history of nursing and parenting and alone, when you have a enlarged gap right here that's reddened, usually the eyes are not black until a day or 2 later. That's like a trauma. It's called raccooning. And so I knew that the injury couldn't have happened right then. The child was very stoic. She did not cry. She had no emotion. I did not feel comfortable, and I immediately told her that she needs to go to the emergency room.
And what was her response to you when you indicated that she needed to go? Let me ask you, what did she say when she brought the child over to you?
She said that she face planted off of the flight of stairs and landed on her face.
And did she tell you why she brought the child to you to look at?
She said she knew I was an ER nurse and wanted to know what she should do, and I informed her that she needs to take that child to the emergency room.
And do you recall what day this was?
It was, I don't really remember when it was. I know.
If I show you something that would help refresh your recollection as to the date?
Yes. Let's see. I know it was in the summertime. Let's see. August the 11th.
And that's in 2015?
Yes.
Excuse me. And you informed her, what did you tell her she needed to do?
Well, I just asked her more about the incident to kind of like let me know an idea of how that her face could be like that. Because it didn't make sense to me because the stairs were carpeted, but she said that the bottom of the stairs was hardwood. And just with toddlers, usually they have a back injury, back of a head injury, just because of their cumbersomeness
I would
and toddling.
object to any expert witness.
Mhm.
So when she stands and objects, you stop.
Oh, okay.
That's how this works, okay?
I
You may
don't
not
do
know.
this. I
Okay,
don't.
all right.
No, I would object, she hasn't been qualified as an expert witness as
I'm not-
to medical matters.
I'm not qualifying her as an expert. I can ask her her experience as being an ER nurse for 16 years, and the history that she was given was consistent with what she observed. And I think she can talk about that in her experience as a nurse without being qualified as an expert.
Donna, I think that's expert testimony. It's not within the ken of the average juror. It's expert testimony. She hasn't been qualified as expert witness.
I'll allow that question.
Were the injuries that you observed to the child consistent based on your history as an ER nurse and what you saw?
No, as an ER nurse, not as an expert. If the person came into my emergency room and said that the baby face planted down the stairs, I would immediately have a question about that because the injuries are not consistent with the way she said it happened. Usually with babies, in my experience as a nurse, they're very cumbersome. They kind of ball up. And usually the number one injury is a head injury and loss of consciousness when it deals with the flight of stairs.
And the injuries that you saw, did it involve a head injury?
No, it was her face.
And was the child unconscious at all?
No.
After observing these injuries, what did you do next?
Well, I told her I was very uncomfortable. I don't like it. I think she definitely needs to take her. She said, well, I'm definitely going to do that. I'll just take her. And so I thought that she was going to. Well, I went to my neighbor's house. I was there for 2 hours.
Let me ask you, are we talking about the same day or another day?
The very same day. I
How
went
much
to
time had passed? in
2
this?
hours. It was exactly 2 hours because I was freaking out because her car was still there. I'm like, she still hasn't taken that baby to the emergency room. And so because of being a nurse and knowing that I wasn't uncomfortable with that, my son and myself went to her house to find out why she did not go.
And what happened when you arrived at her house?
She said that she called the doctor's office and they told her that she could just monitor her and that she could bring the baby the next day.
Did you see the child at that time when you were at her home?
Yes, I did. She was laying, just straight laying, and she was feeding her. She didn't talk. I've never heard her talk or anything. She, again, was just very stoic. And I was uncomfortable, and I said that, you know, the nurse that you probably spoke with is probably a medical assistant. Because in doctor's offices, typically they don't have registered nurses. They have people that work under the doctor, not a licensed professional. I said it would really mean a lot to me if we could please call Children's Healthcare of Atlanta.
And what was her response when you asked about
She
her
said,
child?
okay, you can call them. I said, I'm going to put on speakerphone because I feel like I need to speak with them.
Did you call Cho?
I did.
And what, if anything, was done after you spoke with Cho?
Well, I was telling the nurse from CHOA, this is a foster child, and I think she definitely needs to come in because her injuries are not consistent with the fall. She needs to be checked out. This is just, it's got to happen. She's got to have a rule out. And she asked, did she have any trauma to the back of the head? I said no. And she said, did she lose consciousness? I said no. And then Jennifer was talking to her. It was still on speakerphone, so I heard everything. Another reason I did that is because at CHOA the phone calls are supposed to be recorded for protection of the child as well as the family and the hospital. So I was just trying to safeguard and do the right thing to make sure that this kid got checked out. She told her just to monitor her and that she could take her to her primary care. And when we got off the phone, I said, I still really just don't feel comfortable. I even offered to watch the other child so that she could go. And she said that her husband wouldn't be comfortable with that she called her mother-in-law and that she would go as soon as she got there. She'd just go ahead and take her.
Did you remain at her house after that?
No, it was late and my son had things, football, so I had to take him home.
Did you ever follow up to determine whether or not she had in fact taken the child to the hospital?
I did. She never did take her, but she said that the doctor in the daycare had checked her out. When we went back about 5 days later, her raccoon of her eyes was gone, which, you know, to me, if it just happened, it would have taken a little longer, but I'm not an expert. But when we did come, she did have a different bruise right here on her head.
And I just want to back up so I can get straight. So that night on August the 11th, did you follow up on that day or sometime later?
No, sometime later, because the last time I spoke with her, she knew how strongly I felt, and I genuinely believed her that she was going to do the right thing and take that child to get checked out, especially because I told her, you know, social services is going to look into it. She was like, yeah, I know, they do that at the daycare, they'll come by. So
she informed you that the child was going to daycare as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said a few days later you went back?
Yes, ma'am.
When you got to the house, what was your purpose of going back a few days later?
Just to find out how she was doing, just to make sure she was okay.
And when you got to the house, what happened?
She said that...
when you said she, who were you speaking to?
Jennifer said that she didn't end up going to the hospital. She waited and went to the doctor, and that social services checked her out and everything was clear, and that she had the daycare write a note because I noticed the bruise, and she said that they had to write a letter explaining the injury because of her being in foster care.
So when you went back a few days later, you said you saw a bruise. Was that the same bruise and injury that you had seen to her face on August the 11th?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
It was an additional injury that she said happened at daycare. I had no reason not to believe that.
And did she indicate she had paperwork involving the fall down the stairs or the injury that happened at daycare?
No, she said that she had the daycare write a letter of explanation for social services that she was injured at the actual daycare.
Okay. Did you ever look at that letter or see that letter at all?
I never did. I didn't feel like I needed to. I felt comfortable because she was in daycare and because, you know, she did follow up with the doctor. At least that's what I thought.
And when you went back to that house a few days later, did she mention ever having to take Layla to the hospital for some type of viral infection and her having to receive IV?
No, ma'am. Not at all.
At some point, did you become aware that that child that you had seen with the raccooning was deceased.
Yes.
How did you become aware of that?
The news.
Did you ever have any additional contact with Jennifer Rosenbaum after the death of that child?
I did. She found out that my daughter got the internship and wanted to congratulate her and give her a gift, and I told her I didn't think that was appropriate.
Any other contact after that?
No, I saw her in the neighborhood walking her animal.
Nothing further at this time.
All right, cross.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hall. My name's Corinne Mull. I've got some questions for you. If you can't hear me, if you just let me know. Ms. Hall, you're a mandated reporter.
Yes, ma'am.
What does that mean?
It means if you suspect something that you report it.
Okay, now, you have testified here today that you suspected that the injuries did not occur on the date that Jennifer told you about.
Correct.
Did you call DFACS?
No, I called the hospital.
Did you call police?
No.
You didn't call DFACS or police, you and Jennifer called the hospital.
Correct, because I know that if she went to the hospital, that they would be able to check it out. That was me speculating.
And as a mandated reporter, you're not supposed to speculate, are you? You're supposed to report. Isn't that true?
Yes, I felt that I did report.
And in fact, you talked to the folks at CHOA and they told you that if there was no, she had not fallen on the back of her head, that she could wait until the following morning and she could just be monitored, correct?
Correct.
And you had the opportunity to tell CHOA everything you wanted to tell them, didn't you?
Correct.
Now, you spoke to Detective Thompson. You sought him out, correct?
I sure did.
And you gave a statement on what date?
I can't recall, but I wrote the date on my paper with my signature, so if you want to let me look at it, I can tell you.
Sure. If I may.
The statement reads 11/24/15.
So 11/24/15, by then you had heard the news reports, correct?
Yes, I'm sure I did.
Okay. And you told Detective Thompson, you gave him an interview, correct? And
Correct.
you wrote a statement.
Correct.
And you said that Jennifer had told you she was a foster parent.
Correct.
And you also wrote that Pamela Rosar was present when Jennifer brought Layla to see you.
Correct.
And who is Pamela Rosar?
She's one of my neighbors.
And she lives in the vicinity of Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum?
Correct.
In fact, she's next door neighbor?
Correct.
Okay. Have you seen her here today?
No.
And you wrote in your statement that her nose was obviously broken, didn't you?
Yes.
And in fact, you're aware that that was not true.
No, I'm not aware that that wasn't true. How would I be aware that's not true without an x-ray?
In fact, isn't it true that they did the x-ray, her nose was not broken?
I didn't know anything about them doing an x-ray. It was my understanding she didn't take her for follow-up other than to her primary care, so how would I know that?
So you don't know, do you?
No, I don't.
You didn't call police, you didn't call 911, but you went over to your neighbor's house. What did you go to your neighbor's house for?
To Jennifer's house?
No, to your neighbor's house. You said that after Jennifer came to your house.
I went to my neighbor's house because we were handling business.
Okay, so you went to handle business, and during the time that you were handling business, you don't know what happened to that child, do you?
Well, no, but I know she didn't go to the hospital.
You don't know that either,
I
do
do
you?
too, because I went over there and she said she didn't. So how would I not know unless you're saying she's a liar? That's what you're implying. Why would she say that she didn't go yet?
Your Honor, I would ask, no question is being asked at this point.
She's asking the questions.
Yes,
You're
sir.
providing responses.
You told Jennifer she needed to speak to the CHOA advice line,
Correct.
and she did. She handed you her phone, in fact, didn't she?
Yes, we both spoke to them.
And nurse told you to watch for changes and take to the doctor the following day, correct?
Correct.
And she did not advise to go to the emergency room, did she?
No,
She did not advise to go to the doctors, did she?
no,
Now, you say 5 days later you went to see her and she had different bruising.
correct.
Did you call 911?
No, because she explained it. She said that she had an injury from daycare and that they wrote a letter because she is a foster child. So I felt comfortable because she had the medical doctor that examined her, she had daycare who examined her, and she had a letter saying that she was okay.
You didn't call 911.
I wouldn't call 911 if
The
someone
question
hadn't
is, did you
explained it.
call
No,
911?
I
Did you
not.
call DFACS?
No,
In fact, you relied on what you are now saying is an abuser's statement to you, correct?
I didn't say she was an abuser. You said she's an abuser.
You are here testifying against her, is that correct?
I'm testifying to the facts of what I witnessed on that day.
And isn't it true, Ms. Hall, what you did on that day, 5 days later, is you went home. You didn't call the police, did you?
No,
And Jennifer, you said, told you that she fell at daycare, correct?
that she fell at daycare
That-
with the different bruise.
Yes.
I'm not sure what she said happened at daycare.
Okay.
She
But-
said she got hurt at daycare.
But you suspected abuse,
No, I did not suspect
didn't-
abuse.
so you thought that everything that was going on was A-okay, correct?
I had no reason to believe that she would lie.
Now, let me show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 117. See if you can identify that picture, that person.
Yes,
And who is it?
that's the baby that she brought over to my house, Layla, I think.
And when is that picture taken, according to the stamp on the back?
I'm not sure how to read it. I don't see the date. It's got a bunch of numbers.
Your Honor, the stipulated date, according to the state's and the defense's stipulation, is August 10th, 2015, as to Defendant's Exhibit 117.
Admitted 117.
May I cover this? Is this the picture of the child that came to you on August 11th?
Yes,
Do you see any raccooning of eyes?
it would be hard to tell with her eyes closed and her eyelashes covering.
Do you see any black and blue around her eyes?
No,
Do you see any bruises on her face?
no.
You're a member of Justice for Layla, aren't you?
I'm sorry?
You're a member of the website Justice for Layla.
No, ma'am.
You're not,
No.
okay?
I don't even know what that is.
Now, you're not aware of the website called Justice for Layla.
No,
Okay? You've never been on it yourself.
I don't think so.
You don't think so, or you know?
I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm
Okay.
not really a computer person.
You're an RN where?
I'm sorry?
Where are you an RN?
At HHC?
What is that, Henry?
No, it's an agency. I currently am doing outpatient surgery centers.
So you are not at a hospital?
No, not currently. As of 2 weeks ago, I just resigned from my position.
you resigned, what hospital were you working at?
I was at Grady Hospital in the ICU.
And how long were you at Grady Hospital?
I wasn't there long. I was there for 4 months. I did a contract through another agency.
And when Ms. Rosenbaum told you about the daycare and the letter, you believed her?
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't have any reason not to believe her.
So did you feel you had a need to call the police or DFAX or anyone else?
No, ma'am.
And you said when she came to your home with this child with raccoon eyes, that was on what day?
I believe it was the 11th. I think it was the weekend,
What month?
August.
And the picture that defense just showed you, what's the date on the back of there?
It says August 10th, 2015.
So would that have been prior to you seeing that child?
Yes.
And nothing further.
Okay.
Just ask if she, is subject to recall.
All right, ma'am. Any other thoughts on whether or not she can be excused?
She can be excused by the state.
Okay. And what this means is that you're still under subpoena and you're subject to being recalled, which means that you have to stay nearby so that we can get in touch with you if you need to.
Okay.
But you're free to go.
Like I can go to my house?
You
Okay.
Just carry on. And,
Thank you.
We'll get you back in touch with you if we need you.
Yes, sir.
Well, she's not taking you approach.
Of course. Is this rescheduled?
State will call Jordan Hall.
Did you say Joan?
Jordan
Jordan?
Hall.
All right, thank you. Did you get phone?
If you can turn around and face me. Try to get you as close to mine as you possibly can. I think you did it. Can you raise your right hand for me? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth and the whole truth, so help you God? Can you please state and spell your first and last name?
My name is Jordan Hall, Jordanhall.
And Jordan, do you know the defendants in this case, Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum?
I more know Jennifer, but I have heard of Joseph.
And how do you know Jennifer Rosenbaum?
Jennifer was our neighbor at the time I was attending college, and she knew of the Georgia Legislative Internship Program, and so that is why we were introduced.
And where were you when you were introduced to Jennifer Rosenbaum?
I was at my mother's home.
And tell me about that conversation when you met Jennifer Rosenbaum.
Well, at first it was very normal, you know, she was just introducing herself, letting me know about the internship, but then we started to talk about our lives in general, and she told me that she was fostering children at the time. And one thing that struck me as a little alarming was that she said that the children that she was fostering, she had interacted with them before because they were the biological children of a previous foster family she had been with.
And what did she tell you about those biological parents of the children?
She said that the mother was a meth addict and that Karma was a bitch because now she would be taking care of those meth addicts' children.
How did it make you feel when she made those statements?
I felt very uncomfortable, first of all, because it was my first time meeting Miss Rosenbaum, and that just did not seem like a normal statement to me. So I told my mom from that point on I didn't want to interact with her by myself at all, if possible.
Did you have any more interaction with Ms. Rosenbaum after that initial conversation?
Yes, I did. My mom had told me that the child was injured, and I was lucky enough to be the recipient of the Georgia Legislative Internship. So I informed her, thanking her that I got accepted into the program, and she said she wanted to come by and bring a blazer. Well, I never saw her again, but she said that she wasn't able to come because her little one took a fall down the stairs.
And was this a conversation that you had or via some other method?
This was done via text message.
Okay, and I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 150. Do you recognize State's 150?
Yes, you know.
And what is that?
These are text messages between myself and Ms. Rosenbaum.
Okay, I'd ask that State's Exhibit number 150 be introduced into evidence.
Exhibit 150.
And I'm just and in that text message, what did she tell you about the fall down the stairs?
She said that her little one took a fall on the stairs and fell on her face. And so my response was, Mom told me, I hope that she is okay. And she said that Joseph's mother would be watching the children. And then she asked me about my class schedule because she wanted to know when I would be starting the internship.
And I'm going to back you up just a second, George. You said that she told you that Joseph's mother would be watching the children?
Yes.
During what period of time was his mother supposed to watch the children?
I would have to look at the, I'm sorry. This was a text. She said that Millie's bedtime is at 8:30 and that Joe's mom was just gonna watch Millie, until they got back.
Did she say what she meant by saying until we got back?
No, she did not.
And then you said, did you further have any communication with her?
Yes, I asked her how the baby was doing, and she then sent me a picture of the baby.
And is this the picture that's part of that text message?
Yes, and she said they were about to head home from dinner. Oh, I think that must have been what it was in reference to. I'm sorry, the mother must have been watching them while they were at dinner. No.
When she sent this to you, what is the text underneath that photograph?
That's the text where she said, here she is, referring to Millie, doing better. We're about to head home from dinner. That's from dinner.
After that, did you ever go over to her house at all and see Layla or Millie?
No, not at all. And that was another thing that was strange as well for me is that when we were originally told she was fostering your children, we thought surely we would have seen them because we live in a very small neighborhood subdivision. All the children pretty much know and interact with one another.
Had you ever seen the kids outside at all?
No, not at all.
Did you ever interact with Millie or Layla at all?
Not at all. We never saw them at all.
Nothing further this time.
Okay, cross.
Ms. Hall, my name's Kareem. I'll just have a few questions for you.
Yes, ma'am.
It's fair to say that Jennifer said to you, sorry I didn't get to see you when I came over. My little one took a trip down the stairs and fell on her little face.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And you said, Mom told me I hope she's okay.
Yes.
And she said to you, tell your mom, right? Joe's mom is staying with Millie.
Yes.
She wants to be here when we get back, since we don't know how late it will be.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So Millie can just go to bed. Her bedtime is 8:30.
Yes, ma'am.
So we just put her to bed, and Joe's mom is going to watch her until we get back.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you don't know whether she went to the hospital or to the doctor's and then to dinner, do you?
No, I don't.
So you have no knowledge about where she went.
No, I don't.
And on August 15th,
I need to.
is this the picture that she sent you on August 15th?
Yes, ma'am.
If I may, Your Honor, it's been tendered into evidence, if I could display it to the jury.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right.
Is this the picture she sent you?
Yes, ma'am.
And you got it in black and white or in color?
In color.
Did you see anything on this picture, any raccooning of eyes?
No, ma'am, but I'm also not a medical professional, so I don't know what her eyes should or should not have looked
Did you
like.
see any black and blue around her eyes?
Not that I could see, no.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right.
Just a follow-up, Judge. What day did you get that original text on, from Ms. Rosenbaum?
The picture, the text with the image,
No, prior to that.
on the 11th,
Of what month?
August. So the picture was 4 days after the original text.
Okay. And when she texted you on August the 15th, did she mention having to take Layla to the hospital on August the 12th?
No,
Did she mention anything about she having to get any IV treatment on August the 12th?
no, not at all.
How did she tell you Layla was doing?
She said she was doing better.
Nothing further.
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And any objections to this being excused?
None from the state, Your Honor.
None from the defense, none from the state, you're excused. Okay, please call your next witness.
Dr. Ratmeyer?
Dr. Ratmeyer.
Yes, sir.
We may just have a moment.
Right up here, please, doctor. When you're ready.
Thank you, Judge. Could you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
My name is Lyra Ratmeyer, Lyra Ratmeyer.
And doctor, how are you employed?
I am employed at Primary Pediatrics, after hours in McDonough.
Should be sworn.
She's not sorry. I'm sorry, Your Honor. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And let's start over. If you could state and spell your name for the record.
Lyra Ratmeyer, Lyra Ratmeyer.
And you said you work for primary pediatrics
Yes.
and after hours?
Yes.
What kind of work do you do there?
I see patients on a walk-in basis for illnesses and injuries.
And do you only see children?
Yes.
And how long have you been employed at primary pediatrics?
I have been there 12 and a half years.
Have you always worked after hours at primary pediatrics?
Yes.
And what is your, what was your residency in?
Pediatrics.
And what type of, generally at the after hours clinic, what kind of cases do you see?
It's usually minor illnesses.
And as a pediatrician, are you trained to note any suspicions of child abuse?
Yes.
And are you a mandatory reporter?
Yes.
And are you trained to document in writing what occurs at an appointment?
Yes.
And that would include any suspicions of child abuse?
Yes.
Now, on September 26th of 2015, did you treat a patient by the name of Millie Place?
Yes.
And what was the reason for Millie's September 26, 2015 appointment?
She came to our office because of symptoms of fever and sore throat and cold symptoms.
Prior to September 26 of 2015, had you ever treated Millie?
No.
Prior to September 26 of 2015, had Millie ever been seen at primary pediatrics?
I thought not, but looking back at our record, I do believe she was there under a different name, possibly Clendenning.
Do you know what the date of that appointment would have been?
I believe it was in 2013.
Now, going back to the September 26, 2015 date, was Millie examined on that date?
Yes.
And how was she examined?
For those symptoms, it would be a clothed exam, auscultation with a stethoscope and looking in her ears and mouth and nose, and a general just visual exam.
So you never had Millie take off her clothes during that exam?
I don't believe I did.
And how was Millie treated for her symptoms?
Just over-the-counter symptomatic treatment.
Who brought Millie to her September 26, 2015 appointment?
I believe it was Jennifer Rosenbaum.
And how do you know it was Jennifer Rosenbaum?
Looking back at the record,
And how did Jennifer Rosenbaum pay for the doctor's visit?
I believe it was Medicaid.
And at the September 26, 2015 visit, did you document any suspicions or concerns of child abuse?
No.
Now, was Millie next seen at your practice on August 27 of 2016?
According to our records, yes.
And who saw her on that date?
That was Dr. Trish Moss.
And what was the reason for the August 27, 2016 appointment?
I don't recall.
Would looking at the records help refresh your recollection?
Sure.
And at this time, I will tender State's Exhibit 151 into evidence. It's self-authenticated.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admit.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach the witness?
So according to Dr. Moss's notes from the record, she presented with swollen red tonsils and pus pockets on her tonsils.
And at that time, were there any notations regarding any suspicions of child abuse by Dr. Moss?
According to her notes, I don't see any indication of child abuse in the record.
And when was the next time that Millie was seen at primary pediatrics?
November 7th of 2016, Dr. Moss saw her again.
And what was the reason for that appointment?
Painful and frequent urination.
Was any concerns of child abuse noted on the November 7, 2016 appointment?
There's no indication of concerns in the record.
Let me just step back. On August 27, 2016, based on the reason for Millie's appointment being swollen tonsils, would she have had a full body exam?
I don't believe so, but I don't know what was done at that visit.
Had you seen her on August 27, 2016, and she came in with red tonsils, would you personally have done a head-to-body exam?
I'll allow it.
Based on this, I don't believe I would have.
Now, on November 7 of 2017, was a full body exam done of Millie?
So, again, according to her notes, she does remark on normal genitourinary exam.
And what is that, genitourinary?
So that would be examining the external genitalia.
And when you examine a child's external genitalia, are they completely unclothed?
Not necessarily.
Is any clothing taken off?
Right, partially, probably partially unclothed.
And that would be the clothing that covers the genitalia.
Right.
On January 22 of 2017, was Millie placed treated at primary pediatrics?
Yes,
And did you see Millie on that date?
I did.
And what was the reason for Millie's appointment?
The complaint was abdominal pain.
And was Millie examined on that date?
Yes.
And how was she examined?
So the routine exam and then a more extensive abdominal exam.
And what do you do in a more extensive abdominal exam?
So based on my notes, I did palpate the abdomen for any masses, tenderness. I flexed her legs up to the abdomen, looking for abdominal pain to be elicited. She was able to hop up and down on each foot without any abdominal pain.
When you are checking the abdomen, are you lifting up her clothing to see the skin of her abdomen?
Yes, I usually do.
And on January 22, 2017, did you have any concerns or suspicions of child abuse?
I did not.
And have you ever treated a patient by the name of Layla Daniel?
I have not.
Has anyone at primary pediatrics ever treated a patient named Layla Daniel?
To my knowledge, no.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, Cross.
The only time in 2015 that you saw the child was in September of 2015.
Yes.
And at that time, Jennifer Rosenbaum brought her in, correct?
Yes.
Now, these other instances that you talked to us about in 2016 and 2017, Jennifer didn't bring her in, did she?
According to Dr. Moss's notes, she was brought in by the grandmother.
Okay, that was on 8/27/16?
Yes.
The great-grandmother?
It says by grandmother.
Mhm. And 11/7/17?
11/7/16, she was brought in by grandmother, according to Dr. Moss's notes.
In January of 17?
She was brought in by grandmother.
Are you aware that as of 11/17/2015, she was no longer with Jennifer Rosenbaum?
I'm not aware of.
Going back to September 26, 2015, did the child complain of any bruising or abuse of any sort?
No,
Did she say anybody was hurting her?
no.
Thank you, that's all I have.
No further questions.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. You accept that? Any objections, Dr. Being excused? Okay, thank you. Okay, please call our next witness.
State House Kimberly Purcell.
All the way up here, please, ma'am. All the way up here, right to the witness stand. See the chair and the microphone? Once you get here, just give yourself a little raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You could sit down. You could state your name and then spell it for the record, please.
Kimberly Purcell, Kimberly Purcell.
Ms. Purcell, how are you employed?
I work full-time as a pediatric nurse practitioner.
And where do you work?
Currently I work at Primary Pediatrics in Macon.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Primary Pediatrics in Macon,
And how long have you worked in primary pediatrics in Macon?
about 3.5 years.
Prior to working at primary pediatrics in Macon, where were you employed?
McDonough Pediatrics
How long did you work at McDonough Pediatrics?
for about 4 years.
How long have you been a nurse practitioner?
Since 2010.
Well, what were your duties at McDonough Pediatrics?
To assess and treat well and sick children.
And whenever a child comes into your practice, do you make a note or document the visit?
Yes,
And are you trained to document any suspicions of child abuse?
yes,
If you notice suspicion of child abuse, are you required to report it?
yes.
Now, as a nurse practitioner, have you ever documented any suspicions of child abuse?
Yes.
And what did you do in cases where you noted suspicions of child abuse?
We notified the police first, and then we report it to DFACS.
Now, I want to ask you some questions about a 4-year-old well check. What is the purpose of a 4-year-old well check?
To make sure that they're developmentally where they should be, that there are no underlying health conditions.
And generally, what happens at a 4-year-old well check?
The child is undressed, examined. We go over nutrition, growth and development with the parent, and then if they need immunizations, they receive those.
Now, on October 12 of 2015, did you see a patient by the name of Millie Place?
Yes.
Prior to October 12 of 2015, had you ever seen Millie Place?
No.
And what was the purpose of Millie's October 12, 2015 visit?
A 4-year-old well visit.
And who brought Millie to her appointment?
A foster parent.
And what did Millie's foster parent tell you about Millie's birth history?
It was unknown.
And you said foster parent. Do you remember if it was a male or female?
Female.
And according to the foster mother, when did she first receive Millie?
I believe May of 2015.
And according to Millie's foster mother, who lived in the home with Millie at the time?
The foster mother and I think another male and her biological sibling.
What, if anything, did Millie's foster mother say about Millie and attending daycare?
Twice per week?
She said she attended daycare twice per week?
Yes.
Did Millie's foster mother tell you that she had any problems with Millie?
No.
Did Millie's foster mother tell you she had any concerns with regard to Millie?
No.
Now, in a developmental section of a visit, if you note a 4-year-old child tells stories, what does that mean?
It means if you interact with a child and ask questions, they respond appropriately. They can tell stories, like if you ask what their favorite thing to do is, they can tell you what they're talking about.
And so is this something that you personally observe?
Yes, interaction with a child.
And so if you note in the development section that a 4-year-old tells stories, is that what you would hope to see in a typical 4-year-old?
Yes.
And in Millie's case, did you note that she tells stories?
Yes.
What does it mean if in the development section of the visit you note a 4-year-old distinguishes fantasy and reality?
Like if you ask questions, they respond appropriately, such as, what's your favorite food? They tell you their favorite food and not an inanimate object, like a unicorn or something like that.
Okay. So they actually tell you it's a food, not
Right.
something that wouldn't be a
They
food.
respond appropriately.
Okay. And so is that what you would hope to see in a typical 4-year-old?
Yes.
And is that what you saw in Millie's case?
Yes.
Is it part of your practice to do a hemoglobin test during a 4-year-old well check?
Yes.
And what is the hemoglobin test?
It's the amount of red blood cells that carry the oxygen throughout the body.
And how is the test done?
A finger prick.
And what were the results of Millie's hemoglobin test?
I believe she was 11.6.
Well, what does that mean?
So there's a range of normal values that we accept for children, and if they're too low, then we would do additional treatment or testing. Hers was in the normal range, on the lower side of normal, but in the normal range for her age.
Now, in regards to the 4-year-old physical, you indicated you take off the clothing,
We do.
and in Millie's case, did you follow this protocol?
Yes.
And at that time, did you note any concerns for child abuse during Millie's October 12 visit?
No.
At any time during the visit, did Millie's foster mother ever tell you that she had concerns that Millie had been previously physically abused by other parents?
No.
And at any time, did you treat a patient by the name of Layla Daniel?
No.
To your knowledge, at any time, did McDonough Pediatrics treat a patient by the name of Layla Daniel?
I do not know.
You're not sure at this time?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Cross.
Yes, sir. On 10, 12, 15, did you notice anything wrong with either of Millie's arms?
No.
Did she complain about pain in her arms?
No.
Did you palpate her?
Yes.
And what does that involve? Can you tell us?
Touching the skin, feeling for pulses, feeling for enlarged lymph nodes, feeling for any abnormalities.
In palpation, can you sometimes feel whether there's a broken bone?
Yes, you could.
And you didn't feel any,
I
did
did
you?
not.
Thank you. That's all I have.
No further questions from the state.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You can step down. And,
She be excused.
Yes.
okay, and you're excused.
Thank you.
State calls next witness.
The state calls Peggy Banks.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to take a 5-minute break. This is going to be a very short break. If you just want to step into the jury holding room, that would be great. Thank you.